Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Peter Piper 1 2. Chairman's mic.
A quorum being present, the Committee on Education and the Workforce will come to order. Good morning and welcome to today's hearing on the commitment we, as a nation, have made to recover and protect missing and exploited children. So much of the work we do on this committee is about creating opportunities for individuals to learn, grow, and achieve success in their lives. Unfortunately, statistics and the nightly news continue to act as shocking reminders that too many children in this country aren't thinking about the future. They're thinking about their survival. Last year alone, there were more than 465,000 reports of missing children. No child should live in fear of being taken from his or her family. No child should live in fear of abuse or exploitation. No child should live in fear of becoming the victim of a heinous crime. No child should live in fear, period. That's why protecting our most vulnerable children has long been a national priority. In 1984, the National Center for Missing and Exploiting Children, or NCMEC, was created to play a role in that important effort. Since that time, NCMEC has coordinated and supported state and local efforts to recover children who are missing and support youth who are victims of violent crimes. The organization works with law enforcement, families, schools, community leaders, and nonprofit organizations with a shared goal, providing help to children who are in desperate need of protection. Through a number of initiatives and programs, NCMEC operates a 24-hour hotline and a cyber tip line, maintains a nationwide database on cases of missing children, and provides technical assistance to other recovery and prevention efforts. The organization also coordinates resources to victims, their families, and the professionals who help them. And it engages in public-private partnerships to assist state, local leaders, and community partners in their efforts. As President Ronald Reagan said when opening NCMEC in 1984, no single sector of our nation can solve the problem of missing and exploited children alone, but by working together, pooling our resources, and building on our strengths, we can accomplish great things. Today, NCMEC continues the mission articulated by President Reagan more than 30 years ago. In 2016, the center assisted with approximately 21,000 cases of missing children. Of those cases, 90% were endangered runaways, and roughly 1 in 6 of those children was a likely victim of child sex trafficking. Over the years, Congress has worked closely with NCMEC to ensure it has the tools it needs to do its job effectively. We've also worked to ensure taxpayer dollars being used to support the center's efforts are spent responsibly. And that's the purpose of this hearing, for an update from the organization itself. Today we have with us John Clark, President and Chief Executive Officer. Mr. Clark, we're pleased to hear from you about the work NCMEC is doing to help vulnerable children across the country, as well as the challenges you face and improvements that can be made to help NCMEC continue its work. As I stated earlier, your efforts play a critical role in a national commitment to help our most vulnerable children. In the words of President Reagan, together we can turn the tide on these hateful crimes. I look forward to continuing to work with you and my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to do just that. I now yield to Ms. Bonamici as the ranking member for her opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair Fox, for holding this hearing, and thank you, Mr. Clark, for your testimony and your expertise. Since it was established in 1984, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has been working to reunite missing children with their families and loved ones. In 2016, the National Center worked on more than 20,500 missing children cases, and in Oregon, currently, there are 65 active missing children cases on NCMEC's website, just in my own home state. These are children who are separated from their families, who have loved ones looking for them, and who need to be found. In fact, just this week, a 9-year-old girl from Gresham, Oregon, went missing overnight. Thankfully, she was located and reunited with her mother after a concerned citizen who had seen her picture on the local news recognized her and called police. The quick distribution of this girl's picture and fast thinking of a neighbor prevented tragedy from occurring. Unfortunately, many other families are not as lucky. The world can be a dangerous place for our children, and our rapidly advancing technology can make it even more challenging to protect our kids. Mr. Clark, I applaud the work you and NCMEC have done to not only keep up with technological advances, but to use those advances to better protect children. I'm looking forward to hearing more from you about your cyber tip line initiative to receive tips about online sexual exploitation, the NetSmarts 411 program to educate parents about online safety, and the KidSmarts program to better prepare kids for online risks. I also want to make sure we address the particular dangers facing minority children and our LGBTQ youth. It's a tragic fact that abductions of minority children are grossly underreported in the media. In Washington, D.C. alone, 10 children of color have been reported missing since the beginning of March, and only 2 have been found so far. 10 missing children in 2 weeks is unspeakable. The media has been slow to report on these youth. As we know, media reports about missing children are often critical for reuniting kids and families. Additionally, LGBTQ youth are at an increased risk of homelessness if they do not feel welcome in their homes or their communities. A 2015 study from the Urban Institute told the heartbreaking stories of LGBTQ youth who run away from home and engage in survival sex, the practice of trading sex for money, food, or place to stay. We must do everything we can to make sure that we are protecting all children, including our children of color and LGBTQ youth. I want to close by expressing my gratitude to Chair Fox and the committee for the bipartisan commitment to extending the authorization of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and maintaining the center's independent status. I hope that we can continue to work together to protect all missing and exploited children and reunite them with their families. Thank you again, Chair Fox, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Ms. Bonamici. Pursuant to Committee Rules 7C, all members will be permitted to submit written statements to be included in the permanent hearing record. And without objection, the hearing record will remain open for 14 days to allow such statements and other extraneous material referenced during the hearing to be submitted for the official hearing record. We now turn to introduction of our distinguished witness. Mr. John Clark serves as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Prior to this position, Mr. Clark's career spanned 28 years with the U.S. Marshals Service. I now ask Mr. Clark to raise his right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Let the record reflect Mr. Clark answered in the affirmative. Before I recognize you to provide your testimony, let me briefly explain our lighting system. We allow 5 minutes for the witness to provide testimony. When you begin, the light in front of you will turn green. When 1 minute is left, the light will turn yellow. At the 5-minute mark, the light will turn red, and you should wrap up your testimony. Members will each have 5 minutes to ask questions. Mr. Clark, you are recognized for your testimony.
All right, well, good morning, Chairwoman Fox and Congresswoman Bonamici and members of the committee. I have the privilege and honor to serve as the President and CEO of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children since December of 2015. Now, NCMEC, as we sometimes refer to it, was created in 1984 by John Reve Walsh and other child advocates as a private, nonprofit corporation to help find missing children, reduce child sexual exploitation, and prevent child victimization. And like other large nonprofits, NCMEC receives federal grant and private foundation funding, corporate donations, and private individual donations to enhance our work and engage in building and promoting a coordinated national response to the problem of missing and exploited children. I'm pleased to be here to provide you with insights and updates on NCMEC and the work we have done in the following years since the last reauthorization in 2013. Many of you are familiar with such and much of the work that NCMEC does. So I thought I'd spend my time talking today about a few key emerging trends and issues that NCMEC has seen and has taken the lead on addressing since our last reauthorization. The committee has long played a leadership role on the issue of child sex trafficking, and I know it is of particular interest to many of you today. NCMEC works to combat child sex trafficking by assisting with cases of missing children by operating a cyber tip line. And additionally, we provide significant support to victims and families by helping them locate community-based resources, and we assist victims' legal teams in their efforts to seek judicial intervention, including restitution. As you're aware, NCMEC Cyber Tip Line serves as a central mechanism in which the public technology companies can report instances of child sexual exploitation, including reports related to child sex trafficking. In 2016, NCMEC assisted with approximately 9,000 reports related to child sex trafficking, but we know that represents only a fraction of suspected child sex trafficking victims in this country. Our handling of child sex trafficking cases has taught us that child sex trafficking is also a missing child issue. We have found that 1 in 6 endangered runaways reported to NCMEC in 2016 were likely sex trafficking victims, and of those, 86% were in the care of social services or foster care when they went missing. The group of children who we refer to as children missing from care is an especially vulnerable group, not only for the overwhelming number that can become victims of sex trafficking, but also for other dangers that they would face. In a 2014 law requiring the states to begin reporting each missing or abducted child in state care to law enforcement and to NCMEC. And since that bill passed, we have spent a lot of time reaching out to social service agencies, local jurisdictions across the country to ensure that these vulnerable children are reported to NCMEC. From these reports, we continue to see a significant increase in the number of children missing from care. For example, in 2015 to 2016, the number of the cases increased by 89%. Through this enhanced reporting, we have also been better able to assist and support the efforts of state and local jurisdictions to locate and return missing children to safe places. Now, the issue of sextortion, many of us are aware of what's called sexting, but we are seeing now is that sexting often turns out to be something called sextortion. Sextortion is a relatively new form of sexual exploitation that occurs primarily online when non-physical forms of coercion are utilized, such as blackmail, to acquire sexual content, such as photos or videos of the child. They may obtain money from the child or engage in sexual acts with the child. So reporting to the cyber tip line is a key way to break the cycle of victimization. One of the largest sextortion cases unraveled with one victim, Ashley Reynolds, who was 14 when she was victimized. Her family became aware of her online abuse and reported her case to NCMEC, and we made that information available to the FBI. Investigators uncovered more than 350 additional child victims in 26 states and 3 Canadian provinces in the United Kingdom. They identified 106 of the children, and the defendant was sentenced to prison. So as you move towards updating our funding authorization, I would like to thank you for your leadership and ongoing support of our efforts to recover and protect missing and exploited children. We stand ready to provide you with our thoughts on how to better fund our key programs and streamline our work and serve the public. Again, I thank you for this opportunity to appear here today. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Mr. Guthrie, I recognize you for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for yielding, and particularly to the courtesy of my friends from Michigan and Tennessee for allowing me to yield in to this position to me. I appreciate it very much. I had the previous commitment, but I wanted to talk to you because I was the principal co-author of the reauthorization of the Missing Children's Assistance Act and have been to the NCMEC and seen your dedicated employees and the things that they do. And some of the miracles, one story I remember, they said they had a aged-appropriate someone into their teenage years, and this lady was in school, they had a picture up, and she looked at it and said, "That's me." And her father had abducted her from her mom and taken her the story. It was just amazing stuff that you guys do and how much we appreciate it. So I want to talk about the 2013 authorization. Would you discuss what specific changes NCMEC has implemented to comply with the changes made in the 2013 authorization?
Sure. Much of the work that's happened since 2013 has included many of our modernization efforts. We have collaborated a lot more with some of our other private partners, including in our technology updates right now. We're undergoing a total, I would call it revitalization of how we're able to utilize technology, which is really the most probably capable tool we have to fight child sex trafficking. Updating our website, making our cyber tip capability and analysis go a whole lot faster through partnerships with organizations like Intel Corporation. So we're doing a lot right now to just rebuild into the future and be a very forward-leaning organization to be able to combat the scourge of child exploitation.
Thank you. As the committee considers future reauthorizations of the Act, will you discuss what changes to the law are needed to support vital work of identifying and recovering missing and exploited children?
Well, the more effort and resources we can pour into this particular problem, for example, since the child exploitation issue has really, as you probably know by some of the statistics I just mentioned, have really doubled, quadrupled, and gotten to really out of hand. I think all of the efforts that Congress can do to help us combat the issue of child exploitation will be vitally important to us. It's been noted that practically everywhere I go to speak, that issue is really the #1 priority. And if you think back since 2013 to the present, and you just look at some of the statistics that we are seeing now at the center in 2017, the volume in the pipeline is huge.
Well, again, I appreciate all the work that you've done, and after we had the meeting with you guys, we actually went home and did roundtables in different communities and had people from the judges, we had people from the different groups, and explained to people and try to make people aware how prevalent it is in South Central Kentucky. You know, we think it's just big cities, but it's not. And hotel owners, we had, some name brand franchises to make sure they're aware. And there were some things, tips we had from your group about let the hotel manager or does it seeming like different people coming in and out all the time, and just what to look for. Because in a hotel, you're not seeing the same people every day, but sometimes when you start seeing that, I thought it was very helpful, and I think we were able to spread some of that information through our district. So I recommend my colleagues to do that. And again, I appreciate what you're doing, what your staff's doing. Appreciate you yielding, and I definitely appreciate the courtesy of my two friends here for letting me go out of order. I appreciate it very much, and I yield back my time.
Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. Ms. Bonamici, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you again, Mr. Clark, for your testimony. We're policymakers here, but those of us who are parents never really take off our parent hats, and so I really appreciate your work. And as I mentioned in my opening statement, I'm concerned about children who run away from home. We have a lot of homeless youth in our school systems, and some of those students are emancipated. They don't have a family to go home to. So oftentimes they find themselves struggling to survive on the streets. Can you talk a little bit more about what NCMEC does to help protect these kids and actually prevent them from getting into the sexual exploitation and trafficking?
Well, you've hit on one of the critical areas of our work. We know that in 2016, for example, there are about 20,500 missing children cases. A far percentage of those missing children are what we would refer to as endangered runaways or critical care, often coming from broken homes or being put into vulnerable circumstances and being very vulnerable to sex trafficking and other crimes that organized crime and members would take advantage of them for. And so we look at this as really one of our top priorities. We've been working very closely with a lot of social service organizations. At our center itself, we have trained numerous volunteers who work closely with us, who are coming from the social service field in their home states and their home jurisdictions. And essentially, we're trying to equip them and have them help us, and we can help them be able to identify this very vulnerable and at-risk group.
Thank you very much. And, there's a group of the population that's especially hesitant to turn to law enforcement or afraid, the immigrant and refugee population. Excuse me, in recent weeks there's been increases across the country and ICE enforcement activities that have created some fear among our, not only our undocumented immigrant population, but also people who might be perceived as being an immigrant. And we're hearing reports of domestic violence victims, for example, who are afraid to go to court to testify. We're hearing about families who are afraid to walk their children to the school bus, people who do not feel safe getting life-saving services at shelters or food banks, and sadly, children who are afraid to go to school because they don't know if their parents will be home when they get home from school. So what can NCMEC do to help families of missing and exploited children in these communities, families who are scared or afraid to turn to law enforcement, but still need to be protected from this type of exploitation?
Certainly. Well, I'm pleased to report that the National Center, we operate a 24/7 call center, handles about 500 calls a day. We are able to handle all the calls through all the languages. We have up to 190 different languages that we can have at our disposal to be able to interpret. I'm also pleased to say that I think in many instances we are a first stop call when there are circumstances involving missing or exploited children. We know that from our call center and the type of instances they have with taking calls. So I think that from the center's perspective, we have a long-standing track record of being very open, very receptive to whoever calls our hotline or wants to report to us. And similarly, we know from our capability to put that messaging out if it's involving a missing child through our social and digital media outlets and our close relationship with the news media. We're very proud of our track record and have numerous cases of recoveries of children from all demographics. So we're very proud of that record.
Thank you. And of course, I mentioned prevention. Prevention is ideal because then we prevent problems from happening at the outset. And as we know, technology really is a mixed blessing. So can you talk a little bit about what you can do and what the work that you are doing with families so parents can educate their children about what to watch for, what to be aware of with technology?
Sure. We have a tremendous amount of resources that we're constantly improving upon. We have a NetSmarts 411 program, as we refer to it, that helps parents become aware and informed, which is two key vital, I'd call them tools that parents should be able to use when it comes to knowing more about what their children are doing online and how to guide and protect them from a parental situation to be safer when they're surfing the net. We also have our NetSmarts program, which is age appropriate for children to learn how to safely navigate on the net, how to be careful, how to be safe, what to do if certain circumstances appear when they're surfing the net. So that's another program. The KidSmarts program, another education and awareness program, teaches young children how to be safe when they're just out and about in the public or when they're at school. That might include things like bullying or what to do if someone approaches them to try to entice them to get into a car or go into a park or in some other place where they shouldn't be. We're also interpreting...
I see my time has expired. Thank you for your important work. I yield back. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bonamici. Dr. Rowe, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, for what you do and your organization does. I can't thank you enough. If NCMEC puts one child back in a safe environment, all the investment that we've done has been worth it, in my opinion, every bit of it. And I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. I've heard I think I heard you say that 86 or 80-something% of children that actually ran away or exploited or lost were from foster care. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, children missing from a foster care type setting where they are particularly vulnerable.
It looks like that would be an area, if almost 9 out of 10 come from that environment, that's a way that we need to educate and certainly vet our foster parents better. My next door neighbor is a school principal, elementary school principal, and she fostered some children from her school. And it was amazing what the education in Tennessee that they put them through, this family through. I wonder if that's being done around the country, because it looks to me like that'd be the first place I would focus.
Yes, I can say that from the center's perspective, we're very interested in how we can educate this particular cross-section of our country on how to pay particular attention to those children who might be in their care. We do have and do provide training at the center for a number of social service organizations and people who would routinely come in contact or likely to come in contact with individuals of that nature on how to watch over that particular vulnerable group. That is a group that's also very vulnerable to sex trafficking.
Yes. Well, I have a constituent in my district who lost his two of his children and his wife in the fire in Gatlinburg. And his wife had been, I'm not going to mention his name now, but his wife had been abused, basically sexually abused as a child, and had dealt with these demons her entire life. He has an idea, and I want to get together with you all and discuss this about a child, and there could be abuse of it, there's no question about that, but many young people have a device, a PDA. Would it be feasible to have an app on the device where if a child is in a vulnerable or bad situation, they could punch that they could right then punch that device and with this app and then immediately contact somebody like you or whatever to let them know they might be in trouble. And I realize that, you know, every time you don't let your child go to the whatever, they might punch the app. I got that. I had 3 that I might have to punch that did that, but basically, you see what I'm saying is to make it easier with technology for children who are in an exploited situation to get out of it.
Congressman, I'm far from a technology expert, so I'd probably be the last person to answer that question, but we have added an app that is available now, a child safety app that has been developed in partnership with one of our supporters just in the recent year. And I don't know if that's something we might look at to add as a feature to that particular app. It is something that we just developed and released about 6 or 8 months ago. So that's relatively new, and that is the way of the future. You're right. So from a technology perspective, we'd be interested in looking at that.
I'll meet with you. Well, I have my staff meet with you afterwards. I'm going to run through. I don't have a lot of time left, but you mentioned that NetMec approaches each case of a missing child on an individual basis. Can you kind of walk us through the steps about how that works?
Sure. When a child's reported missing to us, it's very critical that we get the information and word out into the hands of the law enforcement community quickly if it hasn't already been done so. And in certain cases, that is the case. So once that happens, we use a variety of social media, digital media capabilities to get that information in the area where the child is missing. So for example, if a child's missing in Tennessee or somewhere locally, it may not make sense to have that information broadcast to Oregon. So we're able to geofence that information, work quickly with the local media outlets to get that information out. We've even worked with other law enforcement organizations to get that onto digital billboards and the like. So getting the information out quickly is vital. If there's any data analytics or case analytics, we have the analysts on board that can work with that as well to make sure that that particular case is given as much priority and attention as it can be.
You don't have time to answer this, but it maybe at some point in time you can. My time has expired, but what are your biggest needs that we could help you with? And I'll leave you with that thought.
Thank you, Dr. Rowe. Mr. Courtney, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, Mr. Clark, for being here today. This is an issue where, again, I think you're going to have strong support from both sides of the aisle to make sure reauthorization moves forward in a timely fashion. I want to thank the center for actually its work with my office and Congressman Eric Paulson from Minnesota. Last year, we finally passed the Recovering Missing Children's Act, Public Law 184, that President Obama signed into law on June 30th. Again, this was to address a problem that was actually kind of stunning in its, trying to get your head around it. The New York Times, with the help of the center, published a report back in 2010 that the Treasury Department was actually aware of the location of missing kids because of abducting adults having the gall to claim an exemption on their tax returns. So, but unfortunately, the privacy provisions of the IRS code prevented the IRS from sharing that information from investigating law enforcement. Again, it took 5 years for us to get this measure through, but as I said, it's now opened up a pathway so that law enforcement can apply for a waiver from the IRS privacy provisions to, again, investigate tax returns to see if a child, to locate a child because of the fact that that data is sitting right there in the government's lap. And again, the center was very instrumental in terms of helping us make that case over that time period. I guess the question I wanted to ask is, I mean, so it was June 30th, it was signed into law. We've done some follow-up with the Justice Department and the IRS about, again, now that, again, this tool is out there, making sure that, again, police departments, state and local are aware of the fact that that's there. And frankly, there hasn't been a lot of movement in terms of, broadcasting that we've at least certainly picked up. I don't know if you have anything you can shed light on, or at least, we can work together to, again, making sure that this hard-fought, measure, which again, the estimate is that it's a couple thousand kids have exemptions claimed by abducting adults based on the Treasury analysis that was done a number of years ago.
Well, that law certainly makes sense to me. And I applaud the efforts to be able to look at some issue like that and be able to make some headway with it. I'm not deeply informed on where that particular issue stands at the moment. At the National Center, we sort of embrace the mindset that any tool or technique or capability that we can use to help find missing children, we should do it. And that's in conjunction, of course, with all the legal remedies we can find and public policy issues that we can employ. And so that particular example, I think, is a good one, but I'm not deeply informed on where it currently stands.
Thank you. Again, hopefully we can follow up after today. Again, it's, kind of amazing that one arm of the government is aware of the location of a missing child and can't share it with other arms of the government that are investigating it. So, that was the whole point of this measure, is to create a bridge so that flow of information can occur. So thank you for being here today. I look forward to working with you on that.
Would love to work on that.
Thank you, Mr. Courtney. Mr. Wahlberg, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, Mr. Clark, for being here. And as my colleagues have stated, I echo it again. Thanks for the work you do. It's a work that many people couldn't do and wouldn't choose to do, not because they don't care, but I'm sure each day you're challenged with the stories that you hear and frustrated at times with things that stand in your way. In your testimony, you stated that more can be done to combat child sex trafficking, and I agree, and that's why in the 2013 Missing Children's Assistance Act reauthorization, I authored a provision to provide technical assistance to law enforcement and first responders in identifying, locating, and recovering victims of child sex trafficking. Could you, for us today, provide specific examples of the type of technical assistance NCMEC has provided in compliance with this provision to those first responders and law enforcement authorities?
Sure, and that's a wonderful question. At the center, we have a whole section we refer to as our case analysis division. They work very closely to help law enforcement, enable them to find missing or exploited children. In a recent case or example, in fact, I believe was part of my initial oral testimony, working with the FBI on something called Operation Cross Country, recovered numerous child sex trafficking victims. That was in direct relationship to a lot of the work done at the National Center to be able to help locate and help the law enforcement sources locate these individuals who are being trafficked. So that's part of, I think, a broader technical assistance that we are providing out there to the community. Additionally, we've done a lot more with our digital and social media capabilities to be able to let jurisdictions know, particularly in long-term missing cases or where there's exploitation, what can be done to combat it. So we're very, very proud of the work our folks are doing.
Could you explain further how maintaining the public-private partnership model of NCMEC is vital to expanding and continuing the work that you do?
I believe the way of the future is a public-private partnership in all forms of industry. At the National Center, we're very proud of our record of working across the lines with numerous industry partners. We have a lot of our technology giants who work closely with us, organizations like Google and Intel or Microsoft. Then on the state and local level, we work very closely with the National Association of Attorney Generals, the National District Attorneys Association, law enforcement organizations of all types. Many of us and some of my staff that are with me today are here on the Hill regularly looking at various public policy issues and how we can join together to strengthen existing laws or consider new ones. All of this is a public-private partnership, and it's critical, I'd say, to our success. We can't go this alone. This is not a single-hand fight. This is an all-hands fight, and everybody who can bring something to bear to this problem should.
Do you truly feel that entities like Google, Microsoft, heavily connected with the social media through the internet and all of the rest, and some of the trolling places that go on there and the like, do they really get their part from both aspects in this issue?
They do. In fact, a lot of the spike in the number of the cyber tip reports we have seen in recent years is a direct correlation to the awareness and the reporting done through our electronic service providers, organizations that have something to do with the World Wide Web. So we have strong partnerships there.
Okay. We certainly hope that that continues and expands, because that's a crucial area that impacts the trafficking in great ways. So
It absolutely is.
thank you. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wahlberg. Mr. Sablon, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for having this hearing. And Mr. Clark, I have nothing to contribute. I am here to show my support for the program that you are doing with your organization. Obviously, not everything you do is, it can be made applicable in the Northern Marianas, but we don't have long highways and things, but, you know, I'm aware that we do have these 2 children who were lost years ago on their way to school and has not been located. I don't know if they're still missing or something worse, but I'm here to show support and to also urge the committee and this Congress to reauthorize the program at its earliest possible date. Madam Chair, thank you very much for holding today's hearing, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mitchell, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You'd referenced in your testimony, it was a previous question, that a significant component of the missing children are children in foster care. Do you have any data or anecdotal information on what, it's great to try to find the children, but what causes more often than not foster children to end up running away, which is often the case? Can you share some insights on that?
Well, only through some of the individuals that work closely with the center who are more of have a level of expertise far beyond what I do. But we often find that there's elements of what might be commonly referred to as a broken home, children who might be vulnerable. There's also a group of young adults, young teens who, for a variety of reasons, get into situations of substance abuse or other situations that might pull them from a home element that puts them in a vulnerable place. They end up in some type of a alternate care or foster care type situation where they become very vulnerable to traffickers and or organized crime members. So we work very closely with those types and groups of individuals who come in contact with them.
Do you work with the state agencies and so in terms of training and services to try to help them identify and prevent that? What services, what do you undertake to do that?
Our training center operates training classes, I would say, almost on a weekly basis. Since inception, we've trained about 330,000 individuals, some in law enforcement, some from organizations that would address this very issue of vulnerable youth at foster care type situations. So that's an effort that we try to pay particular attention to and pour a lot of training resources into as a way to help educate and inform that part of the population.
Thank you. You also noted, and we're aware that children with autism and other special needs are particularly at risk, in fact, of significantly bad outcomes. You folks have undertaken a variety of services for training, including law enforcement. Can you outline a couple of those, whether there's enough resources to meet the need, in your opinion?
We have been working very closely with organizations like Autism Speaks, I think probably a national leader on that. Now we have a whole new protocol and training that we use to help law enforcement organizations, particularly when a child goes missing who has autism. We have what I would refer to as subject matter experts who advise that local jurisdiction on how to search, where to search, what types of resources are available. That's all free of charge from the National Center. Sadly, we find cases where the outcome is not what we hope it would be. But we have been partnering now with a lot of the groups that are involved in autism and how we can help when a child goes missing.
Do you have enough resources putting into that to effectively disseminate that to law enforcement across the country at this point?
Well, we could always use more help for that, for sure. I'm always hesitant to come to Congress asking for more, but there are times when we are spread thin. Organizationally, if you look at our workload measures compared to our population, our employee population base today, the workload measures are going up. Our population base, employee base is relatively stagnant.
One last question, if I could hop back. Dr. Rowe asked, and he didn't have time, what the biggest need you face. I'll take time to see if we can get an answer to his question. Could you help us with that?
Sure can, yeah. We always want to, I think, pour more resources into the technology capabilities that we can use at the center, especially when it comes to combating the issues of child exploitation. It's been our biggest area of growth, and that is in terms of crimes and situations that are happening. The individuals who are working day and night to try to find these at-risk people or people who are being victimized pour a lot of time and effort into that, and so funding and resources for that, I think, would be vital to us as part of our growth in the future.
Thank you very much, and I'll yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Takano, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Clark, as you know, the act that also, well, let me just go, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act does focus on sex trafficking, but it also, I think, made mention of labor trafficking as well. Is there any mechanism in place to identify and ensure appropriate services that are provided to youth labor trafficking victims?
Well, the primary focus of our job at the center, our work at the center, involves child sexual exploitation. From time to time, we are made aware of or come across cases that do involve child labor issues, and we work very closely with law enforcement on those particular issues and making sure it's addressed. Although I don't have any particular data that is at my disposal that I could share with you on that, but when we do run across it, we do handle it.
Well, perhaps, is there data available? Because what I am aware of is that child welfare agencies are required to identify and document sex trafficking, but not labor trafficking. And I think that's kind of a critical gap in screening and services, don't you think?
It would be, and Congressman, what I'd I probably have to do is get back to you on that in terms of what the data would show. I'm not deeply informed on what that particular metric is.
Yeah, I do salute the work that you're doing on sex trafficking, but I think we ought to maybe also not take our foot off the pedal on the work that you are focused on, but also at the same time, I think expand the scope to also include labor trafficking. Can you tell me what services, outreach, and support is being provided to prevent the trafficking of LGBTQ youth or to respond to their specific needs? What barriers are you encountering in meeting their needs?
I'm not aware of any barriers or particular issues or problems that we have seen at the center, particularly with our call center, both that handles the calls that are coming in from the public, as well as our cyber tip line that points to any dysfunction in what we do. We tend to treat every case, every call, every parent, every person who calls in on equal footing and do our best to help resolve their particular situation, but I'm not aware of any particular concerns or problems from the National Center's point of view.
But is there any particular outreach? Because this target group, you know, in order to really be effective in preventing trafficking among members of this group, you might need to look at special efforts to try and reach them.
We will certainly do that. I know that our training materials, education and awareness materials are broadly disseminated. I don't know if that's maybe part of what you might be also seeking for me. But as I mentioned, I think to one of the other questions, we work quite sufficiently in trying to train, educate, and inform all cross-sections of our vulnerable youth on how to protect themselves.
What is the relationship between juvenile status offenses and trafficking? And how can juvenile offenses be handled in a manner that does not increase youth's vulnerability to trafficking? For example, alternatives to arrest and incarceration.
I'm not deeply informed on that particular topic, Congressman, only because most of our work as it relates to the vulnerable youth are directed really in the area of sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, online enticement. I'm certain, though, at least I would believe there would be a correlation between those arrested in other juvenile-type crimes or circumstances that could relate to them being put into a certain area of vulnerability, much as we talked about with some of the endangered runaways or others who tend to end up in the criminal justice system more often.
Well, so juvenile status offenses in particular that relate to arrest and incarceration, there may be some relationship. We ought to investigate. My time is running out, and I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tucano. Mr. Garrett, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Mr. Clark for being here today and tell him that I think it was 11 years ago when I first began working with NECMEC, and I'm going to offer a little bit of an introduction by way of essentially an offer to help where I may here. I started as an attorney in the Computer Crimes Unit of the Virginia Office of the Attorney General, primarily working on CP, and in so doing, getting to know the folks at NECMEC very well. Ultimately became a local prosecutor and started an ICAC unit that was subordinate to the SOVA ICAC, Sheriff Mike Brown and Detective Mike Harmony, who I'm sure you know. By the way, I've been texting a couple of those guys. They told me to ask you how Ernie Allen was doing.
Yes.
Go ahead. They didn't say ask rhetorically how Ernie's doing, but
yes,
Ernie
well,
I
just say we encounter Ernie quite a bit, and he's doing quite well.
So all this is by way of simply suggesting that, number one, the kudos and thanks you've gotten are all well earned. I want to add my personal experience to this in thanking you. When we charged and arrested and convicted a Joseph Oko or a Daniel Shelton or Michael Robinson, we never knew how many kids we saved because you don't stop this predation. Whether it's CP or whether it's physical exploitation or sex trafficking, the thing that we learned and that NECMEC has been an advocate for teaching is that you don't wake up in the morning and think that preying on a child is a good idea on Tuesday and not wake up feeling the same way on Wednesday. It's something that's just wrongly wired. So you can't ever quantify the good you do, and I think that needs to be noted. Having said that, there was an obscure ruling by an obscure judge named Gorsuch. I think you know where I'm going with this. In the 10th Circuit last year, I think in August, it was U.S. v. Ackerman, where they ruled that NCMEC, for the purposes of Fourth Amendment circumstances, was a government actor, and essentially good data that was received through a collaboration with a major internet service provider would be thrown out because you all did not have a warrant as a government actor. You, with your experience as a marshal and amongst other things, understand the Fourth Amendment well. Is there anything being done by way of a workaround? Would it be prudent to segregate the tip line from the remainder of NCMEC, or is it simply a paperwork burden that we need to meet in order to respect people's constitutional rights? And I'm a big advocate for the Fourth Amendment as well. What's the procedural change that's been implemented in light of Gorsuch's ruling in Ackerman that will allow us to continue to save these kids and get the convictions on the back end?
Sure. The Ackerman decision required us to take a look at some of our internal practices and policies. We've had to adjust some of that now and just in recent times. For example, making sure some of the law enforcement heads who had been previously on our board of directors or not on our board of directors, making proper separation of that. We're also looking at internal space needs to make sure that there's, truly separation of duties and responsibilities from the law enforcement components who have work engagement with us. So that's another area that we're working very closely on. And then addressing any of the other legal issues that might spill out of the Ackerman decision that we think could be, helpful to us maintaining our independence, which we strive very, very much to do. I would like to say on behalf of the center that we're an organization that likes to drive in the center of the road. We try our darndest to comply with all legal issues and make sure that we are in full compliance.
So has there been a subsequent case to test your protocol changes as it relates to procedures post-Ackerman? You understand where I'm going with this. So you guys did good stuff. As a private entity, the courts ruled that you're a government actor. That brings into requirements, obviously, a lot of Fourth Amendment scrutiny. And you've told me that you've changed your TTPs, your tactics, techniques, and procedures. Have we had a subsequent test? Do you feel good about where we are, that the information you might receive through the tip line would be actionable without jeopardizing a conviction?
Sure, and in fact, a few of the adjustments we made on cyber tip line were done even prior to the final outcome of the Ackerman decision. But there have been subsequent cases that have been filed that have been, I guess, similar in nature. I don't know exactly how many, but I'd say a few, as is usually the custom when a case like this comes out. I can't say that any of them have particularly tested our changes or our protocols yet, but I would imagine, in fact, a lot of the reason why we're trying to make some of these adjustments is to make sure we're maintaining that proper independence as it relates to the work we do.
I thank you immensely for what you do and for your time, and I'd yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Ms. Adams, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Fox and Vice Ranking Member Bonamici, for bringing us together to discuss this important topic. Mr. Clark, I want to thank you for sharing some of the work that NCMEC does. One of the greatest responsibilities of adults in our society is to look out for the health and safety of our children within our communities. As a parent, a grandparent, a concerned member of my community, I am greatly disturbed by the frequency of children who go missing or exploited or victimized, but I'm appreciative of the work that you're doing. In your testimony, you acknowledge that children with special needs go missing at higher rates. Are there other demographics of children that are disproportionately reported missing or fall victim to exploitation or violence?
I don't believe there's any other demographic that might address your particular question. We kind of look at the groups that are vulnerable, and we know that, as we refer to them, endangered runways are particularly vulnerable. But thankfully, the other categories of individuals who have disappeared or run away, such as those who are involved in a family abduction or a non-family abduction, we're seeing a fair amount of those types of cases. The The family abduction situation is one that's also, or can be somewhat troubling, depending on a parent, where they're going, where they're fleeing to, especially if they travel internationally.
Okay. In D.C., over the last 2 weeks, social media has been abuzz because between 8 to 10 young Black and Latino youth went missing over the course of less than 2 weeks with very little media attention. Have you noticed which cases of missing children become visible and which cases do not? And what does NCMEC do to provide those less visible disappearances with the resources and support and what resources and support do you have available for making those things more visible?
We constantly make a plea to law enforcement that we're available to help them in resources. We have a whole organization that we call Team Adam that is free of charge, ready to be deployed in any situation where there's a missing child. But we only are involved in those cases which we know about. Now, simultaneously with this hearing, I think the Washington, D.C. Police Department is hosting a press conference. Some of our staff from the National Center have been invited to attend, and we are sending some people there. So the awareness part is critical. We tell law enforcement quite frequently the resources that we can deploy and bring to bear are quite formidable, and they're, for the most part, free of charge. So again, we are there at their disposal to help. I'm not sure which among those cases referred to from Washington, D.C. are, or may have been intaked, as we call it, into our system. So that would be something worth noting.
Let me ask you a question about, because you mentioned the rise in sextortion, and with this widespread of social media and digital platforms, it's not hard to imagine that this is a growing problem. So what are some of the best practices that NCMEC has found while investigating this issue?
Education and awareness is a key, critical thing. We worked in conjunction with the Department of Justice over the last year to produce a public service announcement on this whole topic of sextortion. We've shared that particular training module with many, many law enforcement organizations, the National Association of Attorney Generals, the National District Attorneys Association, other child advocate groups. The more parents become aware of this issue, the more children become aware of the issue, I think it helps as a prevention tool. So we've done significant work to educate and inform the public of this particular new issue that has popped up on child exploitation.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm about out of time, Madam Chair. You're back.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Ms. Stefanik, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Clark, for your testimony today. I want to follow up on Ms. Adams' line of questioning. In your testimony, as she stated, you mentioned the disturbing emerging trend of sextortion, including a 150% increase in reports of sextortion since 2014. And my question is two parts. Other than the increase, what are additional factors that led to the center to label this as an emerging trend? And my second question is, you talked about some of the additional steps NCMEC has taken through family support services and working with law enforcement. Have you engaged schools and school districts on this important issue?
Sure. If I may start with the last question you asked first. We are working closely now with other private sector partners to try to get some of our training education materials in all schools. We would love all school organizations to be able to bring our Net Smarts and our Kid Smarts programs into the school system to educate particularly the vulnerable groups of youth as they enter their teenage years, which seems to be the time when the sextortion issue starts to happen. Now, with the prevalence of supercomputers that everybody carries on their hip called an iPhone or that type of technology, it has become increasingly, and I think that's where it's an emerging trend or a vulnerability, increasingly easier for youth to get trapped in or involved in issues of sextortion. Those who purvey that crime know that, and they're able to, I think, capitalize on the various apps that are out there, the various ways and means and tricks to get young children to engage in something of a sextortion.
Two sort of factual questions that I have. Given the emerging trend, can you quantify what percentage of cases of sextortion where the victim is a girl versus whether it's a female or a male? What's the breakdown?
I don't have the finite breakdown exactly, but we do see more of a prevalence with young girls. However, we've also seen an increase, and probably in the last 2 to 3 years, of that involving also young boys. So the majority of the cases involve young women, but there is an increase in cases involving young men, young boys.
And then my second sort of factual follow-up question is, how do you intend to measure the effectiveness of these outreach programs to law enforcement, to district attorneys? 2 years from now, when we're asking this question, how are you going to measure whether NCMEC's efforts have been effective at raising awareness and tackling this issue?
Well, as the new CEO for the organization, I've noticed that perhaps one deficiency we've had in recent years is not doing a lot of good analytics on what we're seeing in metrics. We see emerging trends and some things that are part of the data sets that come in from a variety of our cases and things that we can easily measure. But it's important to me to be able to measure and perhaps deploy our resources into areas where we see there's an increased need. So I believe that we're doing that now. We're getting some of the help from some of our technology partners to be able to do that, to look at big data analytics, predictive analytics, to be able to see where emerging trends are going to happen and how we can put resources there to help combat it. So I would say at our next iteration or hearing, we should be able to point to more success in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Stefanik. Mr. Allen, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you, Mr. Clark, for being with us today and tackling this. Looks like this problem is becoming more of a problem rather than less of a problem, which is troubling. And although we know that in our society today that evil exists, and I guess my question is this, and it stems off what the Congresswoman Stefanik was talking about, is what are the tools we need to fix this, to curb this, I mean, is there some way we could start on our education system? Is there something from the standpoint of the culture, I mean, what exactly, how do we put our finger on this thing and just tell people just how bad and wrong this is? I know, do we increase penalties? Do we, and are you studying ways that we can stop this terrible thing?
Sure, we're always looking at ways we can stop it, but I think some of the increase in some of the concerns that we see with the capabilities of technology today, where we truly are a world without borders. Vulnerability of children is spread essentially worldwide. In fact, a great majority of our cyber tip reports have an international connection. So you see the whole world is affected by the situation of child exploitation. Education and awareness from the parents' level, I think, is very, very key. The more informed and educated a parent is about what their children are doing, who they're with, what's on their iPhone, what app they have, and who they're communicating with, there's a level of vulnerability there that many parents may recognize but not actually take action to do. Now, how do you get parents to do that? I'm not in every house in America to be able to tell them what to do, but I believe that sometimes I tell parents it's okay to be a little paranoid and ask questions about what your children are doing. And that's just a fact of the matter. So a number of things like that are what's contributing to this.
Are we getting the word out about how serious this problem is? I mean, a lot of parents I mean, really you don't hear a lot about this on the media or their sources. How do we get that message out so that parents do what is right as far as the warning their children about these predators that exist out there?
Congressman, I think one area we're trying to do more of is we have a program called NetSmarts 411. That's primarily aimed at the parents. We'd love to be able to get that out in more available formats, make it available, easily available. It's part of a training curriculum we're trying to do in our new website, which we're in the process of overhauling. Being able to put those tools in every home in America so that parents can have a resource to know what to do. I've run into many, many parents who, for a variety of reasons, maybe they're just not technology savvy, aren't quite sure how to keep an eye on things or watch what's going on with their youngsters.
Well, obviously, young people are notoriously curious, and which is not a bad thing, but at the same time, when you've got evil lurking like this out there, you've got to deal with it. And so just let us know whatever we can do to curb this, and it'd really be great if we could put a stop to this, because it is tragic.
Fantastic, yes.
Thank you, sir. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Clark, I'll yield myself now 5 minutes. We very much appreciate your testimony today and the great work that the center's doing. You've mentioned shifting resources into electronics, cybersecurity, and those kinds of areas, which certainly makes sense. But could you provide us some examples of how program evaluation has led to shifting resources to change the way you're operating? Because we're very much concerned about accountability and what's being done to evaluate at every level and in every program that we fund.
Certainly, and that's a testimony to the committee in making sure that not only you appropriating money wisely, but also supporting the great work we're doing. One of the things I've been doing as CEO is examining all areas of our operations, particularly with an eye towards putting the financial resources and the employee resources where they're most needed. And because of the circumstances, as we've talked about a lot in this hearing involving child exploitation, that is a key area where we want to see some much needed resource growth. On the missing children side as well, we continue to see a number of vulnerabilities there. I think when you look back in the recent years, last few years, we continue to see a lot of efforts poured into the long-term missing cases, a topic that's not often talked about too much. But there's sadly many cases in the country still, long-term missing cases, where the effort to continue to look for them has not been as vibrant as it should be. At the National Center, however, we pride ourselves on never closing a case and making sure that we're directing those resources there to help find long-term missing children. In a recent case, as you may have heard in the news, involving a young boy named Jacob Wetterling, his mother serves on our board. Sadly, after 27 years, he was found deceased, had been murdered, and had been sexually assaulted. In that particular case, reminds us all of the importance of deploying our resources and spending the money wisely. I want to be able to give an account for every penny and every dollar that we're spending and where it's going, both to the Congress, members of Congress, and our private partners as well.
Thank you. I'd like to know also how you're working with the various partner organizations, but mainly the states, to improve what the states are doing, both to prevent children from becoming missing and to help find missing children, because this is not an area where the federal government is going to be able to solve the problem. This has got to be solved at the local and state level. So please tell us what's happening through the partner organizations, and perhaps, if you can't answer everything, give us some examples of states that are doing a better job than others. You can put that in writing later if you need to.
Certainly, there's much of our effort to do on the prevention side, as well as training and educating law enforcement. Barely a week goes by that we don't have law enforcement organizations from states, organizations, county sheriffs, all coming to the National Center to receive training and insight on how to not only look for missing children, but to solve the issue of exploitation. We also have long-term missing child case studies that go on pretty much on a monthly basis. Every month we have at least one of those cases that we do, and we bring in all the law enforcement organizations that have some particular touch in that case, and we review every single lead to see if we can revitalize that. A third example is something being done in the state of Texas, where they've developed a particular interdiction program where they are now looking for exploited children or even missing children when they make vehicle stops with the state police. We have helped with some of that training and continue to want to help with that training, because now we've seen some actual child sex trafficking victims rescued by this particular program. That training is now spreading to other states. There's a pretty significant call for that training to be done. In fact, I believe it's going to be done in the state of Oregon very, very soon as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thompson, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you. Thank you so much for hosting this, and my apologies for getting here late, but I wanted to come and just, first of all, thank you, Mr. Clark, for your leadership with this. The Center does such great work. This past year, I had just a privileged opportunity to spend some time on just one of the days of the 2016 10th anniversary Fireball Run. These amazing teams that come together, spend a lot of resources for 8 days, 2,000 miles. Each one of them essentially adopt one of these children or listing as missing, distributing thousands of flyers in all the communities where they go. I think last I looked, they were this annual event was credited with recovering 44 children, which is very, very much appreciated. It's just a righteous volunteer effort that goes on. And so I want to thank you for your leadership and service in looking, just your commitment to recover and protect missing, exploited children. Just a quick question. Can you talk about the Child Victim Identification Program, and how does it operate, and what impact has it had, and why is it so important?
That's one of our more vital, I think, critical programs. The Child Victim Identification Program has a bunch of our employees that have somewhat, I would say, is the terrible duty, the horrible duty, of looking at all the images, the videos, all of the garbage, I might say, that comes in involving exploited children, sexually abused children. And what they look for is particular clues in those images that might help identify where in the world that particular child is. And so they go about that duty, terrible duty, with a great deal of expertise. And I'm pleased to report that they've made numerous child recoveries by examining videos and pictures and being able to try to spot clues in those pictures and get that in the hands of law enforcement. I would say not a week goes by I don't get information on a case or a situation where they've done that particular good work. But it is very, very difficult work.
Well, thank you again to you and your staff, and I can't imagine how difficult that would be to have that response, important as it is, to be able to have to review those images and in terms of their investigation work. But the recovery of one child, it's so important it's done. Just appreciate you and your staff taking that on. So, thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield back to balance my time.
There are, if I may, there are earthly angels among us, and that's part of the group that's there.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say thank you again to Mr. Clark for taking the time to testify before the committee today, and I want to recognize Ms. Bonamici for her closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. And briefly, again, thank you so much, Mr. Clark, for your important work, and Chair Fox for holding this hearing. It is refreshingly bipartisan when we can come together and all agree that we need to work on this important issue. And just to follow up on Mr. Garrett's comment about the independence, I know there's bipartisan support for making sure that we can, as Mr. Garrett said, protect people's Fourth Amendment rights, but still maintain the independence of the center. So I wanted to mention that. And I did notice that a significant majority of the missing children fall within that endangered runaway category. And so I know we have a lot of potential on this committee to address the root causes that go into that. Why do children run away from home? And our work on the Every Student Succeeds Act, for example, with school safety provisions, career and technical education that provides engaging hands-on education. We have a lot of potential to really address the needs of our students, and I hope that we can work on making sure that those programs are funded and that schools can have counselors in places where students can go at school, and hopefully keep them engaged and out of the dangerous situations where they're targeted. So again, thank you so much, Chair Fox and Mr. Clark, for this important hearing, and I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bonamici. And I agree with Ms. Bonamici on the fact that this really is a bipartisan issue. We are all concerned with protecting children, especially the vulnerable children in our society. And it is an issue that I think all levels of government need to be concerned about. But we all know that the government closest to the people is generally able to solve these problems. And so I'm very interested in the work that the center does with local communities, the police forces, the state government, particularly when we see these staggering numbers of children who run away from foster care. And we know there are some bad situations with foster care, but for the most part, the people who are willing to foster children are there because they care and love the children, and I admire them so much. But my understanding from reading a long, long time ago in child development is that even children who are in bad situations at home yearn to be with their families. And I think that is a critical element here where we need to do more somehow or another to help with dysfunctional families. And having worked with facilities that worked with abused children, we know that we can't just fix children, we have to fix families, and that's where the problems lie. But again, it's an issue that needs to be solved at all the levels of our government. So I appreciate again what you and your staff do, and we appreciate part of your staff at least being here with us today, and I want to give them our appreciation. And as you said, all of the people who work closely with you, who are not paid staff, but come in because they care about children in our country and do everything they can. I think they are unsung heroes, and all that we can do to acknowledge their work, we should do. So thank you all very much. There being no further business, the committee stands adjourned.